Hello and welcome back. It's already week 10 and today we are going to dive into the topic of replacing your child's challenging behaviors. Yes, not just redirecting them to what is expected, but to replace them with something called the functional communication. And what does this do? It helps your child gain communication skills to be able to meet their goals in an easier and faster manner than using their challenging behaviors. So let's look at the illustration over here. The mountain that represents what your child have to climb to meet their goals. So what your child does now is to use challenging behavior. So in this case, your child wants to have a break. Instead of asking for a break, he hits his head. So while functional communication will look like the little speech bubble that we see over here that says, I need a break. So let's look what happened if the speech bubble, or rather our functional communication, is able to reach our goal faster than the challenging behavior. What do you think your child will be using more often then? Is it to communicate using the challenging behavior or the functional communication, which is his words? Whether it's using his AAC device, a picture card, or to use his verbal speech, these are all functional communication. And that's something I will equip you in this tutorial with the skills to teach your child to use words over behavior to meet goals in an easier and faster manner. So let's start. What is Functional Communication Training, FCT? FCT is a structured approach that teaches children to replace inappropriate behaviors with meaningful functional communication. So basically, it helps to reduce challenging behavior through communication itself. So FCT is not randomly labeling items or expanding their vocabulary like what you can see in this picture. And it's also not just teaching them phrases or commenting skills to increase their length of sentences. Instead, FCT is specific words or phrases that clearly expresses your child's intentions. So it comes in a form of protest or a request. So a protest could be like, go away, I don't want to know. And then the request would be, oh, I need a break, I need help. So FCT can empower your child to get their needs met in the right way over using behaviors to communicate. Now, some of you might think, oh, my child cannot speak, they are non-verbal or have limited speech. FCT can benefit children who have limited speech as well, or use their AAC devices. So studies have shown that children that are exposed and have learned to functionally communicate have significantly reduced their self-injurious behaviors and the behaviors to injure others to get their needs met. Apart from challenging behaviors, functional communication have also helped children that are non-verbal and limited speech to effectively communicate with the receiver being able to understand them right away. So this receiver, you can think in terms of, is your child able to communicate their request or their protest to, let's say, their friends or their teachers or even community helpers, like let's say they go shopping at the grocery shop. So all these will help people who are not familiar with them to understand what they need at that point of time. Before we dive into how to use FCT, I would like to touch on some fundamentals that sets the foundation to help your child learn how to functionally communicate. And these are according to the ABLLS-R assessment tool. So I would like you to ask yourself these questions. Can my child request for preferred items, such as, let's say, if they really want a specific snack, a toy, a video, or they just want to drink water? Would they throw a tantrum? Would they perform a challenging behavior over asking it? Next, is your child able to protest appropriately? Is he able to say no to things that he doesn't want? Or is he able to tell somebody, go away, or I want to do it myself, instead of using his behavior to express what he doesn't like? Next, is he able to request for attention? Is he able to say, Mommy, look? I have a lot of students who would start to throw things out of the window or perform behaviors that are really unexpected just to get the parents to look at them and then give them the negative attention. So we want to reduce that as well. And lastly, is your child able to ask WH questions? So such as, what is this and why? And if your child struggles with any of this, that's where we begin. We can start by building these skills first. With that said, does that mean that your child needs to meet all these fundamental goals before they can start on FCT? The answer is no. But they need to be able to at least request for preferred items first. That is because if they haven't learned the value of requesting, it will be very difficult for your child to see why they should use words over using their behaviors. FCT goes beyond requesting for objects. It's about teaching your child to express their intentions, especially when those intentions aren't tied to tangible items. It requires a lot more perspective taking, which is difficult for children with autism. And that is why we need to teach them explicitly so that they can get their needs met in an easier and faster way without having any negative emotions tied to it. Okay, now we can move on to our 6 steps of FCT. And step 1 is to identify your child's intention. The example over here is that your child is always hitting his head or biting himself whenever he feels overwhelmed or confused. So a possible scenario that I've met many times in real life is whenever the child makes a mistake when performing a task, he will hit his head really hard or bite himself. So that brings us to step 2, which is to match their intention with a word or a phrase. So let's say if your child can only speak one word, then you'll match it with a word. But if your child has developed the skill to speak 3-word or 4-word phrases, then great, we can give them a phrase to use at that point of time. So you may think, how do we come up with a phrase? We can put ourselves in their perspective and in their shoes. So let's think in terms of, if I don't know how to do something, what do I do? Do I just hit my head or bite myself? I don't. Right? I would ask for help. So it's either I ask for help, but now with technology, we would Google it. So for our child, it's slightly different. They don't have the options of Googling. So the other way is to ask for help instead of biting themselves. So the phrase would look like, I need help. Next, if your child shows signs of fatigue and hits his head, then the other example would be, okay, then you give your child the option of requesting for a break, like I need a break. Step 3 is to practice, to teach your child when they are calm and not when they are in distress or in a fight or flight situation. So I've mentioned in the previous social stories tutorial, the best time to teach and practice the skills is when they are calm. And in moments of distress is only time to remind them and support them. That brings me to my 4th step, which is to remind right before or in the moment. Let's take a look at the same example over here. Previously, our child, when he makes a mistake, he would hit or bite himself. So now what reminding would look like is that you will tell your child, if you don't know, say, I need help. And place the visual over there and get your child to be able to request to the access and also acts as a reminder. So you have the visual in front of your child. Put it on the table where your child can easily access to when he needs it. At least, if he's unable to say it, he can give you the card. Next, what in the moment would look like would be your child already go into a meltdown, or he already start to hit his head and bite himself. Then you immediately bring the card to your child's face and face the card to your child and point. So maybe get your child to point it. So you physically prompt with his finger to point to the visual, and your child should be able to point. If he points by himself, that's a request. Then immediately give him the help that he needs. So we can start from there, especially if your child is unable to express it yet. If not, if your child is able to express when you point and he expresses I need help, then immediately provide him the help as well. So he starts to get used to the idea of, I can use my words and I immediately get the help, which is easier and faster to get to my goal. Now that your child has learned to ask, whether independently or with prompts, they are pausing to communicate instead of reacting to the challenging behavior or continuing in the challenging behavior. That's a win. So we're going to move on to our step 5, which is to reinforce. With that said, I want to jump on this point, which is, what do we reinforce? If your child asks for a break, give the break. that is the reinforcement. Don't give them a cookie and say good asking, because we are not rewarding for the process of just asking. We are rewarding them for knowing the value of asking itself. So if they ask for a break, please do not give them cookie. That's not what they asked for, and it's not going to be motivating them to want to continue asking in the future. Next, to differentiate the communication the right way. For example, when they request independently, then you give them a bigger reinforcement. But if they request with prompts, then a smaller reinforcement. Let's look at the illustration over here. Your child starts to use challenging behavior to communicate. Then you prompt with, I need break cut. And then your child perhaps say, I need a break. Or let's say he tapped on his AAC device, I need a break. This is when you can give a smaller reinforcement. So you can say, okay, you can go for a 5 minutes break. Then you set a timer for them. Let's say if your child requests independently and says, I need a break without even engaging in a challenging behavior or you having to prompt them, then you can give them a very big praise like, wow, I'm so proud of you. Here is your 15 minutes break. And then you can give them a way longer break just to keep them motivated at that point of time to be able to continue requesting and want to request even more. First of all, I would say congratulations if your child is able to actually request or protest by themselves. This is such a huge step in learning how to communicate their needs and to protect themselves in future. So with that, then a lot of parents would come to me and ask, what if my child takes advantage of this and asks for a toilet break for every 5 minutes? Or let's say he says no to every single thing. This is when we can start to set boundaries. Setting boundaries would look like teaching no or wait the right way. So waiting can look like, okay, you need to wait for 3 minutes before you can get this item. Or let's say, oh, you need to wait for mommy to shower finish, then you can get the item that you requested. You could also use the first then pre-med principle to also guide your child to understand, okay, first you need to do this, then you can go for your toilet break. First, you need to finish this task, then you can do this. With a visual in place, it not only help your child to visually map out what is going to happen, it will help your child to be able to regulate their own emotions and then also understand there's rules for certain situations. Additionally, if you were to set the boundaries, please keep to the boundaries, because the moment you allow them to step over the boundary, that's when they will start to push it, and the next time it might lead into a bigger challenging behavior. There's one common roadblock that I've seen family face is the continual need for prompts when teaching functional communication, especially for children with limited speech or those using their AAC devices like an iPad. So how can we break this? We can break this cycle with transfer trial. I would like to illustrate a little bit. So now we have identified that a head hitting or head bang issue is a real serious concern. So every time your child hits his head, what we might start to do is that we immediately prompt with his AAC. Then we ask, what do you want? Your child then selects cookie, and then you will give the cookie. Now your child have kind of associated that, oh, if I hit my head, then I will get the cookie, because then the entire process will be guided through. So instead of that, we can break the cycle of prompt by doing this. So same thing, bring your child to the AAC device or the AAC device to your child, and then get your child to request. Then insert a short and unrelated task. So for example, you can ask them to touch his ears, touch his nose. So once he done that, then return to the communication task and ask, what do you want? So you bring back the AAC device to your child and ask, what do you want? And if they need help, then you just gesture to the specific tab or the specific item that he was requesting just now. Then give the item. So this approach can help your child to break the direct link between the challenging behavior and immediate reinforcements. And over time, it teaches your child to communicate more independently and appropriately without relying the problem behavior, in this case, the head hitting behavior, to kickstart the entire process. So we're trying to break that association. Alright, now let's recap. Step 1 is to identify the intended purpose behind your child's challenging behavior. Next is to match the intention to a word a phrase, or a visual that meets the exact need. Step 3 is to practice it during calm moments. And step 4 is to remind and support your child with visuals before or in the moment when the behavior happens. Step 5, reinforce with what they have requested for, and then differentiate if they were to do it independently to give them a bigger reinforcement. So let's say if they ask for help, then you provide them with a prolonged help instead of a short help. And if they actually need a prompt to ask for help, then you can just provide them with that specific help for maybe just 1 question instead of maybe 3 questions. Step 6 is to set boundaries. So once your child has independently learned how to request, then that is perfect. Congratulations, we're going to set boundaries, accepting no, and it's time to teach your child to wait after requesting. And the bonus tip is transfer trial, which is to help your child to break out of the endless cycle of prompting if your child has already been in that cycle. And that's it. I hope you can see how functional communication can help your child to meet their goals and their needs in an easier and faster way compared to their challenging behaviors. And I hope you also have learned that you can create your own words or phrases without the help of professionals, just by putting yourself in their shoes and their perspective to help them to be able to express their need clearly to the other person. If you have any more questions, feel free to scan the QR code over here. I'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, stay safe, be empowered, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.